team. So with that, Chief.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending. Obviously, every year we like to get in front of the public and the media and talk about what we're seeing from our crime stats, give you a bit of a presentation what we're seeing, and also talk about some of the impacts of our community in terms of violence or disorder. So thanks for being here. It's an important discussion for us. It helps us as an organization kind of guide our strategies moving forward. What we're going to do in the community informs us moving forward for 2025-26. So with that, I'll turn it over to CITO Ron Anderson. He'll go through the slide deck. We'll say some kind of wrap-up commentary, and then we'll open up for questions, as Brooke was saying. So thank you very much, and we'll get going for you.
Thanks, Chief. Brooke's already moved the slide forward. So to begin with, last year, 2024 crime stats. Just a little context. Crime severity index, or crime severity as the score, as you see on here, is a combination of the severity of a crime as well as how frequent things take place. It's important context when we start to talk about these statistics. The good news is Edmonton's crime severity decreased 5% between 2023 and 2024 last year. And that is a continuing trend over the last number of years, except for a little bit of a blip in the middle. Second slide, please. The violent crime severity decreased by 10% in 2024. Largely that was driven by the reduction in firearms robberies and aggravated assaults. The non-violent crime severity, this is made up of everything that is property related or non-violent of nature, decreased by 2%. Largely that was the cause of a reduction in theft from motor vehicles under 5,000, mischiefs, and break-and-enters, particularly residential break-and-enters last year. Overall crime rate, this is a number of times that a crime takes place per 100,000 population. It decreased by 6% between 2023 and 2024. What we'll note is that we are still below the Alberta rate in this, and that was an accomplishment that we started a year or two ago. But largely we are maintaining our place in this regard here. But we still have a ways to go to continue moving forward. Where we are, no good. Edmonton's violent crime rate decreased by 3% between 2023 and 2024. That again was because assault level 3s and firearms related reductions. Moving on. The property crime rate decreased by 9% between 2023 and 2024. Residential break-and-enters, thefts from motor vehicles under are the major drivers in that one for this year. We are now, at least this year, 2024, below the Alberta rates. Just to give you an idea of the context of the type of crime that we deal with most often, these are the top 10 crimes that we deal with in the city of Edmonton. You'll note that the top two are fail to comply with order and shoplifting. Fail to comply with orders is where individuals being detained or charged by not following a criminally imposed sanction. So for example, they need to show up for court, or they have a certain clause, no alcohol clause, no contact, all of these types of crimes. You'll note that that's right up at the top of the list, and it's something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. A lot of our offenders are obviously repeat offenders, so this is one of the areas that we need to continue to strive to ensure that the conditions put on by court are followed through. The shoplifting item, we certainly seen an economic downturn or troubles in the economy over the last year or two. The level of shoplifting has certainly gone up. In 2025, this is a trend we're monitoring quite aggressively. But again, these are generally repeat offenders, and we need to make sure that they face their time in court and they're dealt with in a situation where they don't continue to offend in the community. With that, I'll pass it back to Acting Chief Dreichel. Following one more slide, Chief, I apologize. I know disorder has been a conversation in Edmonton over the last year. These are our calls for service for disorder calls. Just to give you an idea of what these are, these would be encompassing things like welfare checks, trouble at properties, encampment-related calls, trespassing, and those items that don't reach a criminal threshold. We do appreciate that disorder does affect the perception of crime, and these items are the things that keep the public awake at night as they look out their windows. Now I'll pass it over to Chief Dreichel for comment.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Roger. Yeah, it's good. So thanks everyone again for coming out today. So just kind of highlight some of the numbers that CITO Anderson's talked about here, and just talk about these crime trends and what we're seeing. So I think it's important to note that the total crime rate for Edmonton has decreased 6% in 2024. We are still ranked 11th out of 41 municipalities for police-reported total crime rate in 2024. That's unchanged from 2023. So no change in terms of our ranking in terms of that reported crime. We did see a 5% reduction in our total crime severity index and a 3% decline in violent crime. These are good numbers, and a lot of work has gone into what we're doing in terms of addressing these problems over time, and I think we've seen some success in some of our work. Notably, talk a little bit about what we're doing in terms of our members and their proactive time. So one of the things that we're focused on as an organization is how do we get our members to be more proactive in our community dealing with some of these problems rather than a purely reactive police model. We're also seeing some benefits from our guns and gang strategy in terms of response to violent crime in our communities. And I'd also like to kind of mention the work that we're doing with in the transit areas and our public spaces, that increased focus with the community peace officers and transit peace officers of the City of Edmonton. These are all important initiatives, and our people are making a difference. But we also know there is an ongoing need to address the key issues surrounding disorder that continue to be unacceptably high in our communities. I see the rate of calls related to disorder going up year over year, even while crime itself is going down. We see the types of crimes like shoplifting, key precursors to disorder. We see these going up year over year. We also hear a lot from the business community who are struggling to keep pace, especially in our core communities and downtown, impacted by the issues of crimes and the fact that overall people traffic to these areas are low. Edmonton is not alone in facing these issues, but when you hear the statistics about overdoses and deaths due to opiates and the persistent concerns about how Edmontonians perceive the safety in their city, you know that any time we take to note our successes is overshadowed by the work we must keep doing, keep refining, and focusing on our communities. While our overall crime and violent crime rates have lowered, Edmontonians still face key disorder-related issues that remain highly visible in their day-to-day lives. We're seeing a significant 12% spike in thefts under $5,000. And I think it's important to note that that's likely largely unreported. Additionally, we're seeing a 3.6% increase in violations pertaining to failing to comply with a court order. This is a significant concern. It's the ongoing lack of accountability for individuals within the justice system, where so few people are actually held accountable on these offenses. We know that property crimes, which are victimizing individuals and businesses across our city, are precursors to the real tragedy that's playing out in our community. We see this. We have an 116% increase in methamphetamine possession and a 152% increase in opiate possessions. We remain steadfast in our commitment to meet the issues where they occur. And like so many in our communities, we are hyper aware of the intractable nature of the opiate issue and how it is impacting our entire community over time. We're continuing to focus our presence and resources on safer public spaces, our community partnerships, and specialized programs like our help teams, which focus on managing and providing support to those in our community that need it the most. We're grateful to our community and government partners for their efforts to work with us here. But we also need to ensure that those who victimize our community are held accountable. We need much more support from our justice system. I know these conversations will continue and that we all will stretch to do more to make more progress on these issues going forward. So again, thank you for joining us today. Ron and I are here to answer any questions and provide some information if you require it there.
Thank you. And if you could please just line up behind the mic, introduce yourself and your outlet. One question, one follow-up, and kindly please stick to statistics-related questions. Thank you so much.
Jackie with the Journal. You mentioned that you need much more support from the justice system. What do you envision, what kind of support could you get from them that you're not getting now?
I'll start out and then I'll turn it over to CI2 Anderson here. So there's a couple things. We talk greatly about bail reform, ensuring that our kind of most dangerous and violent offenders are held accountable and remanded where needed. We know that we're tracking some data in terms of files that are going forward to prosecution. In some cases, fairly egregious events are not being prosecuted. So it's working with both our provincial partners in justice as well as federal to try to bridge that gap, figure out where some of the challenges lie for them. Is it a capacity issue? Is it information? And ensure that those that are being that are going through those systems are being remanded when needed be. I'll turn it over to Ron as well. We can talk a little bit about some of the breaches we see in some of the failed to comply information. So, yeah.
Thank you. Just to speak to the justice system that Chief was talking about, we do see a large number of our files get withdrawn prior to a trial. Some of those are related to the quality of and completeness of the evidence that we have, obviously, but other ones are outside of our hands and our decision-making process in the courts. So that contributes to the overall picture of things. On the breach and bail, particularly if you look at what we've been doing in transit with tracks, et cetera, a large percentage of what we're actually doing in transit is dealing with some of these breaches and bail conditions that aren't being followed by individuals. That same across the city is true. It's the repeat offenders who are out on the street with conditions that they need to adhere to. And these are the ones that we continually put through the justice system cycle.
You mentioned the ones that are withdrawn, and you said some of them are because of not enough evidence or incomplete evidence. Why are the other ones withdrawn?
Well, that'd be a question more for the courts. There is prosecutorial discretion, and I think the threshold for a conviction is higher than the probability of a charge. So there are different levels within the decision-making that take place there. So we get to the point where we believe a charge can be supported. It's then sent over to the Crown. The Crown then has their own assessment process around whether they believe they can reach a conviction or if it's in the public interest, et cetera, and they make their decisions from there.
No, with Global. You know, one of the things that you know we notice in here is a lot of drop in the crimes that you might consider you know, severe, these sorts of things. And I just want to ask a little bit about the police initiatives that might have gotten us to this point, and a little bit about what we can attribute that to.
Yeah, and I think there's several different layers to that, and I'll start at kind of that high level. So we mentioned the guns and gang strategy, so ensuring that, you know, we're getting the proper intelligence, focusing on the priorities around violence in our community, especially related to those events. You know, we can look at some of the drop in our gun violence that we see, and that's through very concerted efforts in targeting those individuals and those kind of, you know, that activity, people that are at risk, but then also working at the source. So where are guns coming in? Where are they being, how are they getting into the city? So stemming that. So that's one part. We're also very hyper-focused right now on domestic violence. So coming up with strategies around domestic violence is important. We know that that's probably a fairly unreported crime in our city, or a crime event. So again, getting out to the community, doing that outreach, really understanding the different needs of different parts of the city in terms of domestic violence. There's one other aspect that we're really working on, and we've kind of invested in over the last couple of years, a lot of our youth programs. So we have a significant kind of investment in youth programs like youth diversion. So focusing on some of our highest youth offenders, not necessarily from a justice perspective, but look at the things that they're involved in. What are the supports they need to get out of that? I could tell you that some of the data tracks that we see an increase in youth violence in the city, and it's similar across other jurisdictions across Canada, right? So that's a group that needs support. At a very kind of disruption or kind of suppression street level, you know, we are hyper-focused on those public spaces. So that open air drug use, the disorder that we see, that perception of safety in our community. It's different than the crime data, because you could have reducing crime, but people still don't feel safe. So over the last couple of months, some of the initiatives we've done is work very closely with the peace officers in transit, high visibility policing in some of those disorder cores, and create that sense of comfort. So those are some of the things. I think there's many, you know. Like I mentioned at the start, these crime stats really help us inform our strategies moving forward. And it's those things, it's listening to that, not just the data, but the voices from the community, the business community, right? And that public, those concerns, and trying to address those concerns. So.
Mm-hmm. And you know, on the flip side of that, you know, we're looking at year-over-year increases in disorderlies. That was quite a stark number too for opiate possessions, that sort of thing. Is there a policing strategy that could make these numbers go down, or is this more broadly societal? And if so, just what are some of those strategies?
Yeah, so we've talked heavily about the opiate, what we're seeing in terms of opiate issues within the city over the last couple of months. We're taking really a three-prong approach. So the first, that's probably the one that we're going to invest in the most, is a health response. So this is a health issue. You know, we know we have people using drugs. We know we have people overdosing. Some of it's in public, some of it's in private spaces. What is the health response? What partners do we need to partner up with in terms of social partners or government partners to provide supports to these people? A justice response may not be the answer for the most part, right? So that's the big one. We're actively working with some of our social partners to start to put together like case manage around individuals and really focus on individuals experiencing those challenges and try to get them out of the cycle of whatever's driving it. The second prong would be very much that disruption kind of approach, so disrupting the flow of those drugs, identifying how they're coming into the city, are they being produced here? So disruption deals with kind of that trafficking production piece. And the last is that suppression, so trying to stem the flow of what's on the street, deal with the activity on the street that might be putting people at jeopardy or harm. So that is kind of the overarching strategy.
Thank you.
Hey, Travis McEwen with CBC News. How do you think the overall drop in crime that we saw in these statistics aligns with what we're hearing in public perception?
Yeah, well, I think that is the challenge. It doesn't necessarily always align, right? Because what people see is they don't see the reduction in crime because what they see is what's in front of them day to day. So they see the disorder, right? And I think what we've seen or we've experienced in Edmonton over the last couple of years is this kind of conflated issue of disorder and crime. So the minute people see someone on the street using drugs, even though it's technically illegal, it may not necessarily require a justice response, they immediately equate that to crime in their community, right? The encampments, again, another perfect example of a kind of a more health, wellness, social issue that they see immediately and they relate it to crime in their communities. So where we're having some effect on some of the more serious crime indicators, there's still a lot of work yet to do. I also think personally we've hyper-focused, and I've used that word several times, I'll try not to do it again, but on crime data. So just what the data, reported data says. And one of the things we're really trying to obtain is the perception of safety. How do people feel in their communities? That's something I think that we're getting better at, but we haven't really had that focus in the past. So that's something we're paying attention to because I think it is a voice that needs to be heard.
Hello, Lauren Boothby, City News. I wonder if you can explain, give some more details on, the guns and gangs strategy, just, what is it that you started to do that's new, and how is that different than from what was before, and just some more examples
Sure.
of, the success on that, I guess?
Yeah, you bet. I think there's several layers, and I'll try to relate a couple. So one is really from that pure investigative stance is determine what kind of guns are out there, where are they coming from, who's using them. From an intelligence perspective, try to identify the people that may be involved in gun activity and being very intentional in terms of investigating their activities, but also even connecting with them. We also have a program through our youth programs, the MAG, so it's like a gang mentorship program, and identifying individuals that are entering or youth that are entering into that gang lifestyle and matching them up with people with previous experience as mentors to try to redirect them from there. I think the big thing is really also we're using a lot of technology. So as we get guns or as we seize weapons is, doing that proper forensic examination, trying to trace them to other events, link them to other crimes. And it is having a net effect overall with all these different strategies and, preventing violence, but also, getting people out of that cycle of whatever it is that's motivating them to be involved in crime.
You just mentioned technology. Are there, what are the new technologies that you're using?
I can't
to trace
speak.
these things, and what do the technologies do?
Well, there's things that we can do in terms of tracing firearms, tracing the ammunition. Obviously there's a lot of forensic stuff that goes back, and I don't have that data specifically. There's also linking up with partners, so across Canada on weapons tracing as well as in the United States, right? So it's that kind of information flow and that kind of forensic analysis of those weapons that really is providing some great benefit for us. So.
I just want to ask, when you talked about the charges being withdrawn as being an issue, is there more charges being withdrawn now than previously, and do you know why?
Yeah, we do see an increase in certain crime indicators, and I think there's a couple things. One is it's finding common cause with prosecutions, I think, is important. I'll relate an example. Is oftentimes they'll withdraw a charge, and we don't actually know why. Right? So we can't actually say, is there something we can improve upon, or is there something that was a failure on the service, or something that we didn't do right that caused that to be withdrawn? Sometimes, too, it's just capacity on their side. It's obviously a very busy job for prosecutions, and they need to go through a prioritization exercise to say, will we prosecute this offense over this offense? And I think that's important to recognize. So one of the key things we're trying to do is open up those communication channels so that if there are things we can improve upon, we will. If there's things that we can relay to our membership, we will, right? Or at the same time assist them, ensuring that those events that should be prosecuted are being prosecuted. the data is important, and we just can't react to it. But I think that more importantly, it's meeting with them both, because we have provincial prosecutions and federal prosecutions, understand what they're dealing with, and then try to modify our own work. There may come a time where we say that we will not go to charges on certain events because the reality of them hitting prosecutions will not happen, and then they can therefore focus on the more important things. But at the same time, we can't ignore our, legal or kind of our responsibility to deal with those kind of criminal events in our community. So.
Last question, if that's okay. Thank you so much.
And we spoke a little bit about the strategies behind the successes we see here today, and the strategies to improve some of the shortcomings. But when it comes to disorderlies and when it comes to opiate possessions, this is a thing that is, despite some of these seeing year-over-year rise. I'm just wondering if it's known to police what the sort of driving force behind that is, and the why.
I think we can assume there's a couple things that drive the opiate use. I comment, Edmonton's one of the fastest growing cities in North America, population and area-wise, right? It is also, we are a northern community with a lot of feeder systems in through the health and justice system. We've talked about that in the past, right? So a lot of people come to this city for various reasons, and then they find themselves on the street here. One of the things I think, too, that's really important to note is that we're actively working with a lot of our partners at all levels, whether it's provincial government, city government, and our social partners, to kind of look at creative solutions around this. I think that there's been a time in place in the history of Edmonton where, especially pandemic and post-pandemic, where, there was a reluctance or inability to kind of deal with some of these problems that were burgeoning, especially in our downtown core. So we're coming up with strategies, trying to work at them creatively to kind of address those issues.